good, everybody watching and listening. We will be getting started in just a minute.
All right, guys, my name's Aaron Churchwell. We're going to talk about catfishing today. First thing I want to do is I want to thank the city of Gadsden for having this and having Sheila and the whole East Tennessee show down here. It's an awesome venue with the river right there. Thank Bucks Island for coming out and doing all the photography and everything. So my name's Aaron Churchwell. I catfish tournaments all over the country. So today we're going to be talking about targeting big fish. So when I say big fish, it's how you perceive it. Because a big fish in this river system is not the same thing as a big fish in the Mississippi. 50-pound fish out of this river system right here is a giant.
Yeah.
So they don't have the DNA. It's the same thing with people. Not every one of us in here can be 280 pounds. Some of us don't have the DNA or the genes to get that big, right? Not all of us can be Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's the same thing with fish, same thing with deer, same thing with bass. We're seeing these bass fisheries in South Texas right now that are producing 15, 16-pound fish left and right. I mean, they don't have those strains of bass anywhere else in the country that grow at that rate. Same thing with our fish. So it takes DNA, conditions, everything for a fish to get big. So a big fish here, 50, 60 pounds.
Yeah.
I've seen a 100-pounder come out of this river right here. So they're in there, but do they have the genes and the food source to get there? So you go on the Georgia side, 30-pound fish is going to be a big fish.
Wow.
So it's just, it's all based off of the water that you're at and the genes. So you go up to the Tennessee River, you got a really good chance of catching an 80, 90, 100-pound fish. So, and then also when I talk about equipment, it's all personal preference. There's not one rod that's better than another. That's my personal preference. There's not a hook that's better than another. The brand-wise, it's just a personal preference. They all do the same thing.
Yeah.
So first thing we're going to talk about equipment. So when you're targeting 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 pound fish, your rod and reel is probably the biggest thing that affects the success rate of landing that fish. So a heavy action rod, something that's pretty limber, something that you can, control a fish of that size. So this is a heavy action meat hunter rod. And it's paired up with I call them oversized bait casters. A lot of people say it's an ocean fishing reel. That's not. I think these were made actually for like fishing the Great Lakes, trolling for salmon and stuff like that. But just an oversized rod that can hold quite a bit of line. I mean, when you're talking about 40-pound mono, 60, 80-pound braid, that's a big diameter of line, so you need a bigger reel to hold it. If you use an Abu 5500 or something like that, you get hung up one time and break off, you might as well put that rod in the box because it ain't got no line on it no more. So having a good rod, good reel with some good drag, I mean, these put 16, 17 pounds of drag, something that you can control that fish. Where we catch these fish, I mean, they live in structure. Yeah. If you think about the way a crappie orients, same thing with these fish. I mean, they live around timber, they live around rocks, they live on mud flats, stuff like that. Very similar, like, movements and the way that they live as a crappie. Line, it's all personal preference. Braid, mono, whichever one you want. When it comes down to the business end of it, this is actually a kale hook. I prefer a circle hook. The thing is stuck in there. But the biggest thing about this is when you're targeting those fish, their jaw line is big. I mean, their jaw is pretty big. So having a gap in a hook big enough that it can get around that, my guide is my thumb. If I can slide my thumb through there, you have a good opportunity of hooking a 60, 70, 80 pound fish. So, and then we run leader line on ours just for the abrasion resistance. Right. So this is 80 pound leader. Their teeth pad, when they get that big, it's like sandpaper. So, I mean, they can shred 40, 50 pound line like it's nothing. So we run an 80 pound leader. Some people run 100 pound leader. And then you guys may be asking, why's he got bobber on there? So that's called a Santee Cooper rig. So what happens is your weight gets put on here. And when you're fishing in them timbers and stuff like that, there's a lot of things we were taught as kids about these fish from our grandpas that aren't really true. I mean, when we were kids, we were taught that these fish live on the bottom, they eat trash, they eat dead stuff, they eat whatever they can get in their mouth, right? That is the furthest thing from the truth. We don't have a lot of biology studies on our fish, but just from the anglers that dedicate all this time and effort to catching these fish utilize the complete water column. So, I mean, you could be in 100 foot of water and those fish may be suspended at 50 foot. So it's like bass. Bass, you could be out off of a point in 30 foot of water and those fish will be suspended out off that point 10 foot below the surface. So, but what this does, this floats your bait up off the bottom. So your sinker's down there in that timber or whatever else is laying down there. This is up here. 90% of the time when you get hung up, it ain't got nothing to do with that. It's got everything to do with that. That's what gets hung up. So if you can keep this up off the bottom, keep it more eye level for the fish too, helps you get better hookups, get their attention a little bit easier. So bait is probably one of the biggest factors on getting that fish to eat. You can find them all day, got to get them to eat, right? So I know crappie guys and bass guys, they do what they call match the hatch. If they pull in a slough and there's a bunch of thread fins in there this big, they're going to put on a smaller swim bait or something like that to match what fish are in there that they're feeding on. Our fish are the same way. Like up in Rome, we have the lock and dam up there. All throughout the year, different species of fish move up that river to go up there and spawn at that old lock and dam. December, all the crappie move up there. In Georgia, it's legal to use crappie as bait. Don't try it over here.
No.
So, but in December time frame, when all them crappie start moving up, that's the bait we're going to use up there. That's what those fish are feeding on. That's the prevalent food source for them at that time.
Yeah.
About March, all the white bass start running up there. So we're going to use from March to April, May. After that, your big gizzard shad start moving back up there. Water warms up, they start getting back up there. You can go back to using gizzard shad. That's the same thing with all these. I've been to lakes all over this country. There's a lake in Illinois that they stocked fish in 5 years ago. They weren't native there. And they put 5-inch blue cats in there five years ago. These fish are now 60 pounds.
Holy moly.
It's one of the craziest growth rates I've seen. So they actually did catch a fish in Oklahoma, I think it was. It was 7 pounds and was 30 years old. They go 7 pounds, 30 years old. They think that's the average lifespan, about 30 years for a blue cat. It goes back to the DNA. It goes back to that fish just wasn't, I don't know if it's politically correct, but I think he was a midget. No, I'm kidding. But no, the bait source and everything is what they're prevalent on eating at that time of year. So matching the hatch, that'll get their attention. These fish are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. They have done studies on Wheeler with 60, 70, 80 pound fish where they tagged them. These fish had traveled 12 miles to feed. And when they got done feeding, you know what they did? Swam right back to the same spot they started from. Some of these fish locked through the lock systems up there. They would lock through, feed, then lock right back through. They're a lot smarter than what we think.
I think they have GPS in that head.
It's also pressure, fishing pressure.
Yeah.
You go up to Wheeler. Wheeler used to be an insane fishery for giant fish. It's not as easy to catch those fish anymore. They're still there.
Yeah.
They know what a cut up piece of skipjack looks like now. I used to live on Wheeler. I live in Chicago now, but I lived on Wheeler for about a year, and right at the end, right before I moved, I changed the way I presented bait to fish. My thought process on this was the abundant bait up there is skipjack herring. They're 2.5 pounds, right? Those fish are used to eating that. So I stopped cutting them up. Stick 2 hooks in it, put it out there, and start covering water. I caught 7 fish over 70 pounds in a month's time.
Oh, wow.
And I still have to work. I got a job, so it's not like I was out there every day.
Yeah.
But it's just I changed the presentation. That's what those fish are used to seeing.
See, I tell you, Ed.
My favorite saying is, have you ever seen a fish swim around with a fork and a knife? I haven't. That 12-pound fish is going to eat that 2-pound bait if he gets the opportunity to eat it, because that's what he's used to eating. They are an opportunistic feeder. I think they eat more fresh stuff than they do nasty stuff. So, does anybody have any questions so far? What's your favorite way to fish for catfish?
Tight line.
Go out there, put an anchor down,
Yep.
throw them out. Did you know there's other ways to target them?
Well, we talking about drift.
Drifting, suspend drifting. You set it right below the boat, reel it up a little bit off the bottom, and just let the boat go with the current.
Yep.
So there's another technique called dragging.
Dragon.
Yep, and that's where they make specialized weights that you can turn the trolling motor on and drag your baits and
Drift.
keep contact with the bottom and not get hung up. There's bumping.
You're gonna get hung up regardless.
You're going to,
Yeah.
regardless.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. You get that?
You catfishing and ain't losing the tackle.
yeah, you ain't fishing in the right spot. So, but like going back to those fish utilizing all of the water column, what's the shallowest you've ever caught a fish? 4 feet. A lot of the local tournaments around here, back when I used to live down here, I'd win a lot of them. Because these boys were scared to get their boat in the back of a creek.
Really?
I'm talking, these fish will live in 18 inches of water. I caught a 61 on Texoma in 18 inches of water and one big fish at a tournament.
I guess it depends on the temperature in the water.
It has a lot to do with temperature, water, influx of water, everything.
Yeah.
So,
What's the fishing technique in shallow water like that?
a lot of times dragging or anchoring, scanning with side scan, finding fish, and then just anchoring up and
Yeah, 'cause that's
casting
like,
them out.
It's like tight lining. It's permanent right there. When you drifting and dragging,
You're going-
taking a feet
You're,
to them.
yep, you're going to them.
Yep.
So,
Playing more so where you
yep.
stretch your baits out.
Yep.
I think the biggest key to dragging baits or drifting and stuff like that is, you got to think, these fish are not a 3-4 pound fish that have an air bladder that's this big. You know, when you're talking about a 60, 70 pound fish, his air bladder is as big as a 3-liter bottle. So any little barometric change, any depth change in the water column has a lot of effect on how he feels. So I think that dictates a lot of how they move. So when you have barometric change, I mean, it's a proven fact, those fish like to lay in mud whenever stuff's changing like that. So when you're drifting and dragging baits, you're covering water. That fish doesn't want to move.
No.
He wants to lay down there in the mud and just chill out. But whenever you drag a piece of bait in front of his face,
Grab it,
he's going to take the opportunity to eat it.
yeah. Yeah.
Nighttime, same thing, you like dragging?
Nighttime, yes. In the summertime, like nighttime, I'll fish a little shallower than what I do normally, like in the daytime. I don't really fish a lot at night anymore because most of our tournaments are during the day. And I grew up fishing at night. But to be a tournament angler, you have to learn how to catch them during the day. And that's a lot of people are, oh, they don't eat during the day. Those fish always eat. You go to a tournament, and like when you go out with your grandpa when you were a kid, you pull up, throw the cinder block out or the window weight out, and throw the lines out, and you didn't catch anything, what'd he tell you? Oh, they just weren't biting today. You show up to a weigh-in at one of these tournaments, they were biting today, they just weren't biting where you were at, because somebody's gonna have a big bag. Somebody's gonna catch them.
Yeah.
So these fish feed all throughout the day,
Right place, right time.
right place, right time. Any other questions?
Now, is it better, it's like where we live, on one of the rivers, we have, 3 rivers coming in together?
But the Alabama, the Coosa, and the,
Yeah. Is it better to catfish right there where they come in together?
So if you ask Jeremy Wade, he's gonna tell you yes. Because I think in every one of his videos, that's what he says. Oh, this is where the confluence is, I've never had good luck where rivers meet like that. Where creeks feed in, yes, I have had really good success targeting those areas. I honestly believe it goes back to that influx of water after a rain brings in seeds, little things off trees, bugs, all that other little stuff, and that's what brings the other bait fish in there to eat it. When you have 2 main river systems coming together, that's constant. It's always like that. If you have one of them that blows out, you know, say this river arm blows out and it's just dumping water in, and then this one's got less water, I think they will orient to that seam of the 2.
yeah.
But I honestly believe those fish really like current like that. So they're gonna push up that river that's blown out.
It's the current. Sends the food out. Franklin and just like that, yeah.
You mentioned not being able to use crappie when it was the right time, what do you do then?
Just, I mean, they'll still eat it if you put it in front of them.
No, I'm saying like legally.
Oh, legally?
To this bait, so.
That's the crazy thing is tournament fishing, there are different laws for every state, so you have to look into them. Like South Carolina, you can use crappie for bait in South Carolina. Their minimum length limit's 11 inches, but their law states you can only cut it 1 time. You got to be able to put both of those back together so when the game warden comes up and say, hey, that's an 11-inch crappie. So like in Alabama, we have a 30. Do what?
Bring 'em.
Yeah. The only law they have on that is you can't catch them from one body of water and bring them to another. And I think that just has to do with they're trying to stop the Asian carp spread.
Yeah.
Because they are in the Tennessee River. They are in Wheeler, they are in Guntersville. They're not as prevalent as they are in the Mississippi. But when you look at a baby Asian carp next to a baby shad the same size,
Similar?
very similar, very hard to tell the difference. So,
Now, what's your best bait to catch a catfish?
depends on where I'm going.
If you're not using a real fish. You know,
I've never caught one on artificial. So,
What he's asking is.
What, not
chicken.
oh, like
Yeah.
chicken? No,
liver and all that?
no.
Really?
When I was a kid,
You gotta think about what we're targeting is a whole different size.
yeah, so our tournament weigh-ins they've almost all gone to a 3-fish limit now. It used to be a 5-fish. And a 5-fish was, and it depended on what state you went to, your length limit. So like Tennessee used to be a 35-inch limit. It's a 34 now. So you could catch 2 fish over 35 inches. Your other 3 had to be under. So they went to a 3-fish limit almost all the way across the board. Alabama's a 34-inch rule. A lot of the states are switching over to a 34-inch rule. We still have some of the mid-America states over there, Kansas, Oklahoma. They've got like a 28, 30-inch rule. So, I mean, that's one of the biggest keys on what kind of bag you're gonna see. So,
Okay. So you don't fish?
Chicken breast,
I still ain't ever tried it.
it will catch fish.
He makes something that.
Kool-Aid and chicken breast
There you
and.
go. Look, we've got mini bites.
There's some guys on YouTube that, like, there was a guy on Santee that caught like a 109-pound fish off of chicken. You want me to dive into why I think that they eat that?
The smell,
No,
difference?
no.
I don't know.
What does that closely resemble? Clam.
Really?
That closely resembles a mussel.
Clam, yeah.
And that is a very prevalent food source for those fish. That's what I think
So
is
you
why
don't
they'll
use
eat.
night crawler or shad or nothing?
I use shad.
Oh, okay. Well, minnows,
Yeah.
my bad.
I use shad different times of the year. Usually the first cold front we get is when I start using shad because they're so sensitive to cold temperature. They die off a lot, and I think that's what makes them fish trigger on starting to eat them like that.
What was that video we say when they put that green stuff in there? It turned the shad green.
You're talking about the Mennonite.
Yeah, Mennonite, yeah.
I don't know.
You ever seen that?
I try to fish, so my belief on this is I want the freshest bait I can have for what's prevalent there. If I'm fishing the Mississippi, you can ask that man back there. There's been days right before a tournament where we need to be out there pre-fishing because we haven't really got it dialed in, but we'll still load that boat up and we'll drive 4 hours to go catch fresh skipjack to have for tournament day.
Where in Mississippi?
Just all up and down it. I fished from Cape Girardeau all the way down to New Orleans.
I didn't know they had skipjack all the way down to there.
Yeah. That's actually where they're native to.
Really?
Yep. So anything that touches the Mississippi River.
I didn't know that.
So they actually catch them down in Florida in some of those rivers that are attached to the Gulf too. Yeah. See, like the Alabama River, they used to be native to the Coosa, but they're not up here no more. So
Have you been able to fish while you're down here?
not this time. I wanted to. I might stay Monday. That's my boss.
Talk about leader size, what length and what.
That's a good thing to cover. That's a good thing to cover.
Sinker leader you using when you're bumping them
So,
Depending on conditions.
well, that's another good thing. So like sonar, like we utilize sonar the same way that the other species guys use it too. So when you're looking at your sonar and you look on 2D and you see that fish slap on the bottom, he's buried up in the mud, he don't want to eat. Instead of running a leader this big, I mean, that's going to keep that bait 20-something inches up off the bottom,
If
right?
there's weight there, yeah.
So when you drag past that fish, that bait's way up here, right?
Uh-huh.
You think he's going to come out of that mud to eat it?
No.
So
No.
when we look at our sonar and we see where those fish are oriented, you'll shorten your leader up.
Yeah.
Shorten your leader up. Now you're right there eye level with him.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's the same thing with bumping on the Mississippi. So our rig for bumping, you ain't got no bobber right here. You've got another dropper line that comes off here, and that dictates how far off the bottom you are with your bait, is what this is. So your lead is hooked to this. So
Drag weight,
yeah, so you change this out for depth-wise, because a lot of the Mississippi is sand dunes and stuff like that, and little drop-offs and stuff, and that's what those fish do. I mean, I've seen, the fastest I've ever seen the current in Mississippi is 14 miles an hour.
Got a lot of, yeah.
I don't know how that fish survives on that. Yeah. That fish, when he comes up out of that thing, he's already 50 feet back there. Which is funny too, because a lot of times whenever you get them to eat, you'll feel them hit it and they'll never move. And then you're like, I lost bottom. He grabbed it, but I lost bottom. It's because you had this set at the right height and you dropped it right there where he is, right behind whatever he's laying behind. He grabbed it and never moved. If you're running it too high and you have to have that fish come up in the current, when he grabs it, you're gonna know it. Because he's grabbing it and he's going southbound because he can't, there's nothing he can do about it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's a lot that does too with how we target fish too, is looking at your depth finders, seeing where they are in the water column, and then orienting your equipment to meet that.
Okay.
So, and a lot of times I'll start out, like when we're bumping on the Mississippi, we'll start out, I'll run a really short one, he'll run a really long one.
See which one does.
Just trying to
Yeah.
figure out what they prefer. Anything else?
In heavy structure, you change the length of your lead leader and all that so that you keep your hook up out of it.
Well, I don't run a leader like when I'm anchor fishing. I just do that on bumping.
I'm talking about when you're bumping,
Yeah.
you're in heavy brush.
I got a secret. I got a secret for that I can't tell you about, and you can ask that man back there.
Well, we're here to learn, okay?
Yeah, but there's some things that make you very productive in tournaments that you can't give away.
He ain't gonna say it when he's sitting there.
That's competition back there.
Hey, could you leave the room?
No, there are ways on the Mississippi if you think outside the box.
Now, when you say that, how deep in water you fishing? You fishing towards the bank, in the middle?
On the Mississippi?
Yeah.
So when you look at the Mississippi, it's not all usable water,
No.
because they have wing dikes and all that
Freaking
stuff and
sandbar.
everything, and sandbars and all that. So the channel is what we orient to in the Mississippi, unless it's flooded. If it's flooded, I'll get a mile outside that river channel up on a mud flat and drag
Yeah,
baits.
yeah.
Because, I mean, you gotta think about it. When that river blows out like that, you see them big trees coming down the top.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta think about all the debris that's down there on the bottom.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I don't wanna sit there in a sandstorm with my mouth open. I don't think it's gonna feel too good. So, but no, those fish will get out of that stuff and they get up on them flats, but. Any other questions? Well, guys, thank you guys for coming. If you guys can think of anything else, I'll be over at the SmackDown booth right in front of the stage over there.
Can he get your number? Any questions later on?
He can hit me up on Facebook Messenger. I'm an open book, seriously though. If you guys ever have any,
From getting my bait.
keep your bait moving. When you start tournament fishing, I don't really anchor fish anymore, do you?
Do what?
Do you really anchor fish anymore?
Sometimes. I mean, it depends. I mean, Hank and I've got spots on the river that.
But when you go to anchor in that spot, how long you giving it?
May say somewhere 30 minutes or more.
So
See, sometimes we do good, sometimes we get a lot of bites, no catches.
yeah,
Other times it's,
The big fish, the 49 that Hank got at Vicksburg, that we had to go way in there because
yeah,
was called spotlight.
yeah.
what's called
So-
spotlight.
Spotlight, using
Using the trolling motor to anchor.
Yeah.
We don't throw an anchor very much anymore. If it's too hot a current to throw an anchor,
I'm still young, so I'll throw an
we
anchor.
gonna
We won't do very good.
But we just found some locations on Mississippi that are
It
not conducive to bumping because they're
really light
their
current.
location, but
Yeah,
there's fish that are there.
You
Yeah.
know, I've lived in Louisiana all my life. I've caught more fish in the old river, in the bar pits, more than I have in the Mississippi River. That's just crazy.
we're at in Louisiana.
But they
Down there by Natchez.
cross the Natchez.
Okay,
But the thing about
I'm gonna tell you right now, if you get down by New Orleans,
Yeah.
late summer, I bet you after 4 hours she's telling you I want to go home.
Huh.
We went down there in September at the end of it, like as it was all dying off. And you can ask him after 4 hours, and I hadn't fished all year because I moved up there to Chicago for work. And after 4 hours, I looked at him, I said, I ain't doing this tomorrow. We're catching 35 to 40 pound fish, one after another after. The first spot we pulled up through, we threw 6 rods out, and within 10 minutes, I said, I ain't putting more than 1 out each.
How far south of New Orleans?
Right there in New Orleans.
Okay. Okay, like bell shape. Okay.
It was insane. And there were dudes going down there for months and catching 2,000 pounds of fish a day. It's not as heavy right now.
Yeah.
People are still going down and catching fish, but they're not having days like that.
See, I thought maybe when you said New Orleans, you was going over about St. Rose where the grain bins are. And the fish is feeding off the grain.
Like Norco,
Yeah,
that's what we're talking about.
yeah, yeah.
But that time of the year, and with the prevalent droughts we've had every year, that section of river slows way down there, and all that salt water starts pushing up. So all those fish from Venice to New Orleans all move to New Orleans. So it's been a destination I've wanted to go to for a long time, and they threw a Cabela's tournament on down there. And
So y'all
It was-
allowed to fish by the grain bins? Like cargo and ADM and all that?
yeah, you ain't gonna be the only one there.
caught a whole lot of fish around the grain.
Really?
In Memphis, the grain,
Everybody talk about it.
Yeah.
I fished them and fished them.
you don't catch a lot of giant fish around the grain bins. You catch numbers of fish.
Right. See, I figured they'd be glorious eating all that grain.
They do.
corn and wheat.
They do.
Yeah.
But here's the biggest thing, and I'm gonna spill the beans for this guy right here.
Can of corn, which is about 4 or 5 kernels on the hill, and that's what they eat the corn, they eat the soybean.
So I'm gonna go ahead and put something out here, even for him to hear. So you gotta think about this. That fish in that amount of current has to live on the bottom.
Yeah.
He has to utilize the current breaks that are down
Yeah.
there, because he can't sit there and swim in that all day, right? So when that grain is coming off that granary,
Yeah.
think about how far downriver
It goes.
it takes for it to get
Yeah.
down there.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, we've found those fish stacked, mile and a half down and on the opposite side of the river.
Yeah, 'cause
And you don't think about it at the time,
Yeah.
but then you're looking at it later and you're going, okay, that current hits
Yeah.
that bank and then switches and
Yeah.
forces everything to that side. That's why those fish are over there.
Yeah.
So,
See, that's why I said,
I can show you a picture. And it's a mile and a half below granary, and it's in a rock, and there's just
yeah.
just do something.
stacked full of fish.
Liver.
But that corn that they're eating is different than that stuff y'all buy at the store.
Yeah.
And the first bump I went through, spring fishing, was a 35, and we left. Then we had to trouble
sorry, guys, for you. They're sounds like they're going to swap some fishing stories here. Thanks for joining us. We'll be here all day. I think next up is going to be Lee Pitts talking about crappie here locally, and then a good round table at I think it's at 1 o'clock. It's going to be fun with Shaw Grigsby, Matt Herron, and there's somebody else in there with our very own Dano is moderating. So, yeah, if you see us live, then jump on and learn some stuff. So, if you can, get on down here to the venue down at Coosa Landing to the Alabama Fishing Show and Expo. Love to have you. See ya.